in charge of everything in Egypt except for the actual throne of Pharaoh. Kind of cool, right? Well, there's a famine coming, so the brothers go from the promised land down to Egypt to ask for food. Well, Joseph has taken on all of the customs of Israel. I'm getting too far in depth in this, aren't I? So, they ask for food, and they reunited. They don't recognize them at first. There's this big boo-hoo and reuniting. And the Pharaoh is so grateful to Joseph and his family, he gives them the best part of Egypt to live in. So there's plenty of food, there's plenty of, they're healthy, they're strong, they're not nomads anymore. And after a couple generations, they're so populous that the Egyptians are worried about them taking over Egypt. So they start enslaving them. And they're actually enslaved for 400 years. And that sounds really bad. But that was God's way of growing a nation. Wait, Abraham was promised to be made a great nation. So while they were enslaved, they were grown as a great nation. Moses came and freed them from the slavery. Well, God used Moses to free them from the slavery. That's where the 10 plagues come in. That's where the all of the gnats and frogs and the angel of death comes over and passes over the Israel's homes and kills the firstborn of everybody. Then, while they're wandering in the desert, because he refused to ask for directions, I knew you were going to say that. While they're wandering in the desert, the next generation is made stronger so they can actually go back into the promised land and conquer it. So they go back in and they conquer it, and then they go through this kind of a tribal area where Dan and Benjamin have their areas in the promised land, but there's no central government. It's more of a confederacy, if you will. So they're, every time there's a nation coming in to invade them, God raises up a judge or a prophet or a leader, anywhere from Samson to Deborah. I mean, all of those were leaders at one time for the nation of Israel in times of crisis. And eventually, they want their own king. Well, Samuel's the judge / prophet, high priest at the time, and he goes, "Well, we have no king but God, so we don't need a king. We have God." Well, they demand a king, and Samuel goes up to God and says, "What are we going to do? You're God." And he goes, "Samuel, they're not sinning against you. They're sinning against me." So Samuel gathers up the whole nation in one location, and he goes, "Okay, you're going to get your king, but just because you sinned doesn't mean you stop serving God." Oh, that was an interesting line. Oh, I'm a sinner, so I can quit serving God. No, just because you did something wrong doesn't mean you quit serving God. You still serve God. So they said, okay. And then they selected, whatever. Samuel anointed this tall, dark, rich, handsome man as king, King Saul. He was so impressive that during his coronation, he hid amongst the luggage. That's a scary thought. We're off to a great start. How's that king thing working out for you? God realized he selected the wrong guy. He wanted a man after his own heart, so he selected David. Wait, Saul's not dead yet. You can't have two kings at the same time. So there's a struggle. David respects the kingdom that God has set up, doesn't kill Saul, and Saul eventually dies in battle, and David is made king. And everything that David touches is blessed by God. I mean, he's such a man after God's own heart that the nation just grows in geography and in wealth. And he's so rich now that he wants to make a house of God. And God goes, I don't think so. There's too much blood on your hands. Well, you told me to. Still, there's too much blood on your hands. So the big mistake he had was seducing his general's wife, and that baby died. But his favorite son comes from that woman, which is a whole strange story to me to begin with. So Solomon is made king after David dies, and he's so rich and wealthy and such a good governor that the state of Israel is solid, it's strong. He builds the temple of God. Everything, I mean, Queen Sheba hears about his wisdom and wants to come visit him just because he's so wise. So, great story, right? We love this story. Great nation. This is Abraham's promise. Bless you, make you a great name. We're still talking about his name. Bless those who bless you, curse those who curse you. Okay. All the promises are kept, right? Oh, wait, there's one more. Through you, or in you, all of the families of the world will be blessed. Not yet, right? Okay. So, after the wise King Solomon dies, the kingdom is divided because the priests think they need to follow the line of Saul. No, the priests think David. They need to follow the line of David. And the traditionalists want to follow the line of Saul because he was the first king anointed. So it becomes a house divided. And for years, we have kings of the north and kings of the south. And that's just a little timeline. But it becomes a weaker house. It becomes a less secure house. Well, then the Assyrians come in and they take over the south, and the Babylonians come in and they take over the north. Wait, reverse that. Anyways, the whole country of Israel is destroyed. Most of the Jews in this new form of warfare take the population back to Syria or Babylon. Instead of trying to control that geography, there's always going to be a hotbed and a boiling up of rebellion. So this new form of warfare removes a lot of the population, so it's harder to rise up. So the culture is diluted, and those that move out want to keep their culture. It's much more important. They don't have the geography, so they want to keep the culture. And they're always wanting to restore that kingdom. So you have the story of Nehemiah trying to go back and build the walls around Jerusalem, because that's geography. He wants to rebuild the nation of Israel. And then we have just the different stories, wanting to rebuild the temple. We have everybody looking for one governor of Jerusalem, Zerubbabel, my favorite governor of Jerusalem. Zerubbabel is actually an ancestor of King David himself. There's such a swell of pride in the governor of Zerubbabel that they try to make him king. The scriptures just kind of stop talking about Zerubbabel all of a sudden, and he falls out of history's view. I don't know what happened, but I'm sure that Assyria or Babylon, wherever he came from, didn't want another king in Israel. You get the idea. So this fervent search for a new king like David. They even call him the branch, the one who's going to save Israel, the Messiah, the Christ, the anointed one, because David was anointed. So there's this fervent search for someone to restore Israel. Then all of a sudden, we're like 250, 300 years go by. There's this man preaching that there's going to be a great Messiah coming any day now. His name is John. And they call him John the Baptizer, John the Baptist, because he's baptizing everybody. And he's speaking of the coming of this great Savior, this great Messiah, the anointed one. He's on the steps. Okay. Then this other man named Jesus, he's from Nazareth, and he hears John preaching, and he says, I need to be baptized by you. And John goes, are you kidding me? I'm not even worthy to tie your shoes. And so John does what he's asked of this Jesus of Nazareth. And Jesus is baptized, and then all of a sudden a voice from above says that, you know, God is very pleased with this man. And there's a dove coming over. It's just really kind of supernatural after this baptism. Then this man preaches for 3 years. There's this national pride swelling up. There's even a call to arms in some sectors. There's Jesus is so powerful that everybody's starting to think, okay, this is the Messiah, the Savior, the Christ, the King of, like David. We're gonna have a real kingdom now. Okay, so we're ready. Okay, when they come to arrest him, because the Jews aren't real comfortable with what he's saying, he's going to be in charge, not the priest. We kind of like the priest being in charge, especially if you're one of the priests, right? You don't want to lose your job, so you know you're gonna fight for it. So they accuse him of a variety of things, something that he can get the capital punishment for. So he's arrested, and the night he's arrested, one of his closest, in his mind he might think of himself as a general or second in command or something, pulls a sword out, and the fight is on. He cuts off one of the ears of the guy that's arresting him, and Jesus goes, whoa, that's not what we're about, and actually heals the guard who's come to arrest him. And that was just one of many miracles that Jesus did while he was preaching, which gave him power, signs, wonders, which captured the attention of the whole nation. Matter of fact, it grabbed the attention of Rome. They were a little bit worried about that too. Finally, he's put to death on a cross, which is the traditional capital punishment of the time. And they put him to death. They bury him in a tomb, and he's risen from the dead. Okay, if that wasn't enough to just kind of change your mindset, we're looking for this great king, we're looking for this Messiah, we're looking for this one. Now we can start Acts.